Mic, audio, audio, audio. Oh, wow. Well, finally, we have some audio. Great. It seems as if it's going to be working out now. All right, tell me, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Oh, wow. Can you hear me now? All right, so this said that I am live. All right, I think we can hear now, but this seems not to be my morning. All right, good morning. Can we hear? Morning. Are we hearing? Just type in the chat for me if you can hear. Can you hear me now? Can we hear now? Oh, wow, no one is responding. Okay, great. All right, just give me 1 sec. System seems I'm having issues left, right, and center. So I've been here 1 hour and 20 minutes now, trying to get on. No avail. And the system is still working a little slow. However, we're going to get over that. So let me just put some things in perspective and come back to you. And then I'll be highlighting some things I saw. No need to worry, no need to panic. When saying so, I was a little worried when I was not able to reach you just now, because I really wanted to put the icing on the cake for you to move off. And when that wasn't happening, I was like really anxious, but I think I'm fine now. All right, I'm just resetting some stuff so that students can actually find me. That's it. Everything is just working against me this morning. Everything, you name it, and it is not going right. But it doesn't mean that we are not. So I am going to start talking about excretion. In a couple of shows, I realized persons were saying that excretion is not on the thing, but I did play the video this morning from the videos I sent out, and I realized that there's no truth to that. I also observed that while other students were saying the eye is not on the exam and all of these fancy dancy, I also observed that those who have the alternative paper did not take the opportunity to defend their point. Good morning. I have a question. If we don't answer any question, paper 2, and correctly answer all question on paper 1, would we pass the exam? You would have failed as failed, right? Because paper 2 carry the bulk of the content. All right, so let's just move off. I am very sorry for what happened earlier. You would have seen I tried logging on a number of times and there was no audio. I went into the help for YouTube and that wasn't coming either. It was really slow. And luckily, we are on now. So let's just give thanks for that. It could have been worse, but we are here. What I want to talk about is pretty much our final moments to the exam and what we might see on the exam. Like I have said, persons are saying excretion is not on the paper, but based on the video I sent out earlier sometime this year that looked at the broad topic, there is no truth to that. So because there is no truth to that, there's something I need to tell you about excretion. I was wondering if not the I on the exam paper for those persons who are doing the straight paper, those persons who are doing paper, the alternative paper, the I will be on your exam. So if you are doing the alternative paper, the I is going to be on your exam based on what we are seeing from the document that we have sent out. Can you hear me? I want to make sure that I'm not talking to myself. Can you hear? Just type in the chat for me. Can we hear? Okay, great. I don't know. Everything is just not going right. All right. So just let me deal with the excretion. So on the regular paper, the regular students who are doing biology, the document is saying that you are going to have excretion. Now, if you are going to have excretion on the paper, by my recollection, I'm going to be looking at the textbook. Because by my recollection, it would be wise for you to know the kidney. It would have been wise for you to know a diagram of a kidney. It would have been for you to know a diagram of a skin based on what CXC would have said. I'm trying to find in my textbook because I really don't want to leave anything out. I'm going to look at some diagram that pretty much it would have been wise for us to know going into the exam. So yes, I am at the kidney excretion. Just let me just start that. What I'm trying to do is to get the broad topics. Just give me a minute. I am just waiting on biology to come up. All right, great. So now I have it on screen. I do hope that you can hear me. All right, so the topics for this morning will include nutrition, which covers photosynthesis and all that is associated with photosynthesis. It covers nutrition, which means that holozoic nutrition, which means enzyme, the teeth, the digestive system, all those could have been captured or might be captured in the exam. But because we did not do anything on excretion, just let me come back here. I'm toggling between screen, so I want to ensure that you are here. Problem corrected. Yeah, that's fine. All right, great, great. All right, good. So I am back and I'm going between screens. So if you can't hear me, let me know. I'm going between screens. So if you can't hear me, let me know. Now, so we're looking at some of the possibilities for excretion this morning. And I'm looking down at my textbook because I don't want to miss anything. All right, great. So excretion must be defined using the word metabolic waste. You want to ensure that you are doing that. Now, with excretion for biology, you could have excretion in plants. That could be on the exam paper, the way in which plant excrete. Now, you could also have excretion, as it were, with human. So you have to pay attention to that. Waste product, you could look at the waste product. I don't want to get into the details. I just want to look at some diagrams that are possible. So you could have the urinary system that has both kidneys and has the renal artery, renal vein, the urethra, and the bladder. That's a possible diagram. You could have the kidney on the paper and you're asked to label or identify parts of the paper. That's a possibility. You could also have the nephron on the paper and you're asked to label the nephron. There's one point of the nephron that persons are always overlooking. When you look at the glomerulus, there are two blood vessels there, the afferent arteriole and the efferent arteriole. One is larger than the other. The afferent arteriole is taking blood to the glomerulus and it is larger. The efferent arteriole is smaller and that is what creates that pressure in the glomerulus. Now, outside of that, you could just up onto my channel. I can't share anything with you now. So I gave you 3 diagrams there. Now, the nephron, which is the same thing we call the kidney tubule, the kidney, and the urinary system. Now, you could also get that negative feedback mechanism that we have been looking at. You remember when we spoke about temperature control, glucose control, pretty much asthma regulation. Those diagrams could be featured on the exam. So you need to know about that for excretion. It said that it is going to be there. All right, so that is just a summary as to what will be there for excretion. Biology, you need to know about excretion in plant, excretion in animals. All right, so that would have been covered as to what we're going to, the possibilities there. Now, you are going to be seeing continuity and variation. Continuity and variation could speak to mitosis, meiosis, any one of the genetic diagrams. We could look at evolution. We could look at natural and artificial selection. All those mutation, all those are possibilities for the continuity and variation. Then there is reproduction. In reproduction, it could come as far as germination. I don't know, you probably see a little seed dispersal there. So you could see germination, and that would have probably been a lab in question number 1. The germination, you could see germination as question number 1. You could see the enzyme as question number 1 because those are labs, and they are saying that it's going to be on the paper. So just let me look at the thing here and see what we could do. So as question number 1, from nutrition, you could get a food test or a combination thereof. You could get enzyme or a combination thereof. You could get something from ecology or a combination thereof. You could get the food chain. The food chain will be on the thing. And remember that when you are drawing your food chain, you must use an arrow to show the flow direction of the energy. Don't just draw a line. So where we have food chain, you know that we're going to have food web. Now, when we talk about predator-prey relationship, we spoke about that last night when we were talking about symbiosis. That is going to be on the paper. We spoke about decomposers. Where decomposers is, we are going to find the carbon cycle. So you need to look at that and remember that decomposers tend to cycle nutrient in the environment. All right. So we could, for question number 1, we could see any of the things that we have done so far, including the food web, could be as question number 1 along with some other lab. Then there is the treatment and control of disease. We went through immunity at large. You cannot go to the exam and not know about diabetes and hypertension. You need to know what causes diabetes, what causes hypertension. We're going to talk about that if we have enough time. You need to know what causes diabetes. You need to know what causes hypertension. You need to have a good grasp of birth control. You know, AIDS is popular on the paper, but they might not ask you about AIDS. They might ask you about choice birth control. And we have looked at a number of birth control in the past papers we have done so far. For transport, the transport looks at transport in plant versus transport in animals. Now, let me look at the plant transport first. When we're looking at transport in plant, there's a possibility that you need to know about the functional and structural difference between xylem and phloem. And like I'm saying that I will be going through a little of that before. I think the exam is 9 o'clock. You can tell me. I hope you have the time right this time. I saw somebody asking earlier what time the exam will be. I think it's a little too late for somebody to ask that question. But you know, we do have these things sometimes we have to treat with. So I'm just looking for in the textbook here. Really don't want to miss or drop anything. I want to ensure that we have it locked. All right, so I'm going to go to the plant part first, and then I'm going to look at the animal part. Now, when we talk about transport, let me just treat to transport very quickly. When we talk about transport, I'm not seeing the screen here. So if I'm not answering, I'm not seeing the screen. I am looking at other things. For transport, transpiration is a natural thing. It could be there. And we have done a lot of work on transpiration and a lot of graphs on transpiration. Transpiration could be there. We talk about transporting plant. We know that the xylem vessel is dead if we're talking about structural difference. We know that the phloem vessel is alive. We know that the phloem vessel has a companion cell. The xylem vessel does not have a companion cell. We know that the sieve plate would have been disintegrated in the xylem vessel. However, in the phloem vessel, we have sieve tube, right? We also know that the xylem vessel is taking water to the various places, water and mineral to the various parts of the plant. I won't use going up in the plant because if the limb is going down, the xylem vessel is going down there as well. It's just that it is transporting this water and mineral salts from the root. How is this going up? We did that at length. It is using transpiration pull. One might say turbo pressure. We could talk about some other ways, capillarity and so on, in which water move up the plant. So transporting plant. Now we have to know the xylem and the phloem vessel at all views going into the exam. I have never seen the vascular bundle as such on the paper, but it wouldn't hurt if you glance at it and start to use some number coding to know what you are supposed to do there. So we spoke about the lab. We spoke about the factors that are important for transpiration. I just spoke about root pressure, turbo pressure. I spoke about capillarity. I spoke about transpiration pull. Those are getting water up into the plant. We did look at we looked at transpiration and the factors which impact transpiration. Remember, I said that all those factors that are a part of getting your clothes dry on the line would have been important for transpiration, which would have been temperature, humidity, wind speed or air movement, and of course, we could look at light intensity. However, light intensity, as it were, for the plant, it regulates pretty much the opening of the stomata. Remember, all these factors I have made mention of could be a limiting factor for transpiration. I know I'm going very fast, but this is sort of crash course. So we have temperature that will, of course, drive transpiration, humidity, which is pretty much the amount of water vapor in the air. And we have wind speed, how fast the wind is blowing, that could speed up or slow down transpiration. And we have light intensity, which a plant at all time will open and close the stomata based on how much water how much water is available to ensure that it continues to stay alive. Now, with transpiration, you will understand that we could have osmosis and diffusion being tossed into this mix. So osmosis, diffusion, and active transport is a natural part of the exam. If you are going to be looking at photosynthesis, if you are going to be looking at transpiration, if you are going to be looking at digestion, then there's no way you can go to the exam and say that I don't need to know about osmosis, diffusion, and active transport. And we continue with the way in which plants modify themselves in order to conserve water. We could look at the stomata being at the lower part of the leaf. We could look at the stomata closing during the course of the day and opening during the night for most plants, except for those plants that are desert plants, which would have pretty much have the stomata closed during the day, but open during the night. But for most plants in Jamaica, we're going to have the stomata open in the day and close at night. Most plants, like the farmer that we studied in one of the past paper we did, right, great. Now the adaptation of a plant to conserve water, we're going to need to remember that some plants have leaves that are reduced to spine. Some plants have the stomata deep into the leaf. Some plant would have had adaptation where the leaves are very, very thick. And then we have some plants like the xerophytes, those plants that really don't need much water, the cactus and so on. We know about those. All right, so we have a lot of things to talk about here. We have the mesophyte, the hydrophytes, those type of stuff. I've not seen them on the paper for quite some time, but it wouldn't hurt. So pretty much now it's just glancing over and looking at what you don't know or what you did not do, that type of a thing. Remember when we are doing earlier in our circumposing, we have that bulge on the stem because the phloem is coming down and it can't go right down. So it create that bulge right there, should you need to know that. All right, so transpiration is a real thing. It could be on the exam as question number 1. It would have been really difficult if it is there, because I don't know that any teacher would have had the opportunity to set up a transpiration lab with COVID. Now let us look at, as it were, transpiration with animals. There's no way you can go to the exam and not knowing that multicellular organism, they need a complex circulatory system because of their small surface area to volume ratio. So don't bother twist up your brain as to what that means. Just remember that if it's an elephant, it have a small surface area. If it's an amoeba, it has a big surface area. Just remember that. So it is a small surface area. You and I, we have a very small surface area to volume ratio. And as such, we need a transport system in order to move things through. The amoeba is very, very thin, thinner than a book leaf. So diffusion can really take place very, very quickly. We need to know about the structure of the heart, which is a real possibility. You were at home, so you had the book, could look at the heart. Now remember that the heart has 4 chambers. The heart has 2 sides, the left side and the right side. Now the left side of the heart is sort of thicker than the right side. The walls there, they are thicker, and it is thicker because it is pumping blood around the entire body. Now remember that the heart have a number of valves. On the left side, we are going to have the bicuspid valve that separates the ventricle from the atrium, right? And on the right side, we are going to have the tricuspid valve. Now it's tricuspid valve because it has 3 tendons. It's bicuspid valve because it has 2 tendons. And then just above the artery there, the pulmonary artery, we are going to have the semilunar valve. So you want to remember these valves. Now outside of the valves, you need to remember the side of the heart, the right ventricle, the left ventricle. You need to know what is a pulmonary artery, what's a pulmonary vein, the aorta, the vena cava, that type of a thing. The one that is at the top, we call it the superior, and the one at the bottom, inferior. And you could have anterior and all of those words coming in. Now, you are supposed to know the internal structure of the heart and the external structure of the heart. So you must be able to label the heart at whatever. No need to get nervous. No need to get nervous. Trust me. Now, remember, if you're going into the exam, pay attention to this word. If it is a drawing, it must be accurate. If it's a diagram, you can draw a circle and label it as the heart. Just make sure that you draw the line and say this part is down the ventricle. Boop, I draw a circle or a square, and I just do like that and make us that, and then make one little something right there, so one little something right there, so because the diagram are drawing. And once I can label to show that this is what the architecture should look like, then I'm fine. Because if the art become defective and you have to repair a part of it, the art won't look the same anymore. So you pretty much just need to go into the exam and just do what you can do and don't bother worry about the semantics. Just get it out of the way. So we always will remember that the heart is a double pump. The blood passes through the heart twice. Remember that the blood is not mixed in the heart because the heart is protected down the middle by what we refer to as the septum, a muscle called the septum. The heart is made up of a muscle we call the cardiac muscle, which never ever get tired. They just keep working probably before we were born actually, and it continues to work. Now, you just want to glance at the diagram of the heart. You need to know the blood vessels, of course, the capillary arteries and vein, and the adaptation of the blood vessels. For example, you must know that once you're seeing the vein, it will be drawn with a valve. If you are seeing something draw well, really, really thick, that is going to be the artery, because the artery is carrying blood under high pressure, so it doesn't really, we really don't want it to rupture. So you need to know that. The capillaries are usually the smaller one, and they are one cell thick to allow blood to things to diffuse in and out of them. Remember that the blood doesn't mix. The blood doesn't mix. So outside of the vein, the artery, and capillary, we have the venules and the arteriole, which are just smaller branch of arteries and smaller branches of vein. We need to remember that. All right. So a lot being said there. Great. So when we talk about systole and diastolic pressure, the systole pressure is a higher number when you are taking the blood pressure, and that is the pressure when the heart goes so boop. That is the systolic pressure. So we go boop. Now that the heart is at rest before the other beat, then we are getting the diastolic pressure. So when you're doing the blood pressure reading, the one at the top is systole, the one at the bottom is diastole, and the systole is the heart working, and the diastole is the heart at rest. So if you feel your heart now, each time you hear boop, that is the systolic pressure. And as it rests to come again, then that is the diastolic pressure. You need to know about that. Now, the blood vessels, we spoke about the blood vessels. You need to have a good grasp as to the blood vessels that are pretty much dealing with major organs. Now, that is pretty easy. You could just glance at your book and you are going to see the diagram there. All right, I don't want to give you a class on circulation and mash up your morning. All right, great. And it would be nice. We have been looking at blood clotting. We did say that calcium and vitamin K, they are responsible for blood clotting. We spoke about the purpose of a platelets in ensuring that the blood clot. And I can remember clearly that somebody said that as soon as it becomes exposed to air, and that was very good, it will clot. Sorry, if you score high on your labs and you go and you do good in the multiple choice, and just let me tell you, I am not even going to go down that road with you. I am going to say to you that you are going to do well. Stop worrying yourself. Stop worrying yourself. There's this thing about us now that we are just minutes away from the exam. We feel blank. We feel like we know nothing at all. And when you go into the exam and you just flip through that script and you use the formula by answering those that you know, you are going to realize, but wow, there are some clue here. I can master this paper. So don't worry about all the many things that I am talking about now. Don't bother worry about it. You have until 9 o'clock to get it right. Until 9 o'clock to get it right. Some persons there have their phone, persons might be on the bus, persons might be wherever watching this feed. All right, so we're looking at that. Remember that hypertension is a reality that you need to know about. Hypertension goes with circulation, hypertension goes with disease. So we are almost certain that hypertension is on the paper. We are almost certain that diabetes is on the paper because it goes with nutrition and it goes with disease, and both nutrition and disease will be on the paper. All right, good. So those are some stuff that we want to look at. And we'll look at the immunity part of it already. There's a little graph on immunity. If you can just glance at that in your book, that would be good. The video I sent you on immunity, the one that I did, and the types of immunity, that is pretty much adequate to treat with the paper. So that was a glance at transport. What diagram can we get from circulation, as it were, with human? We could get the external structure of the heart. We could get the internal structure of the heart. We could get the blood vessels to identify or label the blood vessels. And you could see the capillary bed, which is really most time found on the HSB exam. But you could find the capillary bed on the exam. All right, so those are the diagram. Let me say the external, internal structure of the heart. You could have that to label or draw or describe, whichever. And you could have the 3 types of blood vessels that could be on it for circulation. As it were, I've never really seen them asking you to draw like the phloem and xylem vessel. But of course, you need to know them and live. They're pretty easy, so that is pretty much the thing. Just remember, put your finger X. If you have an X like that, that X is showing the thing moving up from the ground, and that is the xylem. Once you remember that the X is the one carrying the water from the ground, then you're cool. The other one must be the phloem. All right, so that is just a crash on circulation or on transport as it would have been. I will go back to it as we go closer to the exam. Just give me a second. So we spoke about We spoke about transport. I spoke about the possibility for excretion. Now the possibilities for reproduction. Just let me go to reproduction. Uh, reproduction is a big topic, you know. Reproduction is not the friendliest of topic to a lot of persons. All right, so storage in plant is something that you don't want to miss out. When you look at transpiration, you'd have heard me asking you about the tubers, the difference between the tubers. Uh, all right. So good. Germination could be on your paper. It is one of those lab that is assessed in the back of the syllabus. So there's a possibility it might be there. Remember that the factors that are responsible for germination is going to be water, oxygen, and adequate temperature. Water, oxygen, and adequate temperature. Now we looked at that in the labs that in the past papers we would have done. So germination, you're supposed to have that, should I say, lock. Then there was something on the paper as to why we store food. So food storage in animal, we talk about fat being stored around organs and under the skin. We spoke about the role of the liver in converting excess glucose into glycogen and storing it in the muscle and liver cell. We did talk about that, and this is pretty much stored for time of scarcity or for time when you need to go and fight your friends or jump up in the classroom and say, fight, 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 miss, fight, fight, fight. So we spoke about that at length. So storage, remember the liver. Now remember the organ there that is responsible for converting this excess sugar after we would, not the organ, the hormone that is responsible for converting this excess sugar after we would have eaten would have been insulin. So insulin is converting excess sugar into glycogen and it is stored. So this is pretty much something that is activated by the liver, and of course it will do its work there. So it having been stored, when we need back that energy in order to go down the road or run because it's going to rain or shout at somebody down the road, then what is going to happen is that the glucagon, the hormone glucagon, will convert the glycogen back into glucose. But outside of that, you are in the town and you are walking. It's really sad what's happening in Haiti. Don't have any idea really what is happening. But you just took a trip to Haiti as a tourist, and when you landed off a plane, you hear bam, 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 and you jump on your belly and you start to run. Now, there it is not the glucagon that is converting the glycogen to glucose. Now, that is adrenaline that is converting the glycogen into glucose. So it's both glucagon and adrenaline that is responsible there. So we move on. We looked at excretion. Let me just see if I can find reproduction. All right, great. Reproduction. I don't know. Reproduction is one of those topics that a lot of persons are afraid of. A lot of persons are afraid of it. I don't even know if I am afraid or otherwise. But I'm going to slow down a little bit and talk about reproduction because it's a big topic. All right. Uh, Good morning, sir. I am having running belly. That is normal. That is normal. I operated as a football referee in Jamaica at the ice level here in Jamaica. And every time I have like a referee exam or I have like a big match, you have to walk with your tissue. So this is a normal reaction. It is not that you are sick. It's not that you're going to die. It's just showing how important the exam is to you. So don't worry about running belly. Don't worry about vomiting. That is normal. Normal. It doesn't mean that you are sick, right? It means that you're alive and you are responding to a stimulus. All right? So don't go crying and say that you're whatever you're going to. It is normal. Say, yay, I am alive. My body is responding to the fear. You're fine. Trust me. If that's your problem, you're fine. All right? Sir, can you run through asexual reproduction a little? That's the topic I'm scared. Come on. Asexual reproduction is I wish I had my pencils and something. You see, the show is not financing us, so I can tear up and dash and mash up things in order for students to learn. I can't do it because I don't have the finance. Give me a second. All right, I went to the kitchen to get a piece of napkin because we're going to do reproduction. Now, remember what is reproduction. Reproduction is pretty much this whole idea of transferring your genes or pretty much producing an offspring, right? Now, the offspring could be viable or otherwise. Now, reproduction could be classified in two groups, sexual and asexual. Now, sexual reproduction does not mean that you are going to have sex. That is not what it means. What sexual reproduction means is that there is a fusion of the male and female gamete. I said fusion, not fission. Fusion. Fuse, they're coming together. So you have the male and the female gamete, which is the ovum and the sperm. They are coming together, and when they come together, something new is created. That is sexual reproduction. Now, sexual reproduction, you don't have to have sex because you can have artificial insemination. And if you're a part of my life, you'll remember me saying that it is not the penis that gets anybody pregnant. The penis has never done that. The penis is not so good. As much as persons think that the penis is this great organ, it is not so good because it's not the thing that gets any woman pregnant. It is the sperms, which means that your hand can impregnate somebody, providing that the sperms is on it. All right, great. So with asexual reproduction, the beauty about it is that it only requires one parent. We don't, all right, for example, I take for example, all like Mr. Wilson. Nobody likes Mr. Wilson, and Mr. Wilson can't get along with any woman, and nobody wants to talk to Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson is always in book, and nobody have the time for any man like that. You're like bookworm, no. So if Mr. Wilson could reproduce asexually, it would have been better for me because I wouldn't have to quarrel with nobody but myself. I am the parents. I am just everything. So what I would do, this is Mr. Wilson. In order to get a child, I'll just break off myself like this. And now this is me. And now this is the child. I just use a part of me to create an offspring. That's all I did in asexual reproduction. And remember, if you look at this, when it was like this, it was pretty much one thing. So when I tore them apart, now that I put them down, you don't know them different. They are identical because of mitosis. It would have maintained the same chromosome number, so they are identical to each other. That's mitosis. Another beauty about asexual reproduction, us using a part of it, is that we don't need to spend any time to go and look for a girl. So she tell me that, guess what? You're too black. You're too short, you're too fat, you're too slim, you smell bad. No, 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 no. We don't have to waste time for that. I need an offspring and this is me. Ah, I just go book and there I have my offspring. I don't need to worry about a woman or a man or whatever to get an offspring. We don't have to waste time finding mate where asexual reproduction is concerned. No, because we don't have to waste time finding any mate, right? So look here. So this is me. I want one child. I get one child. No, look, I get another child. I'm getting another child. Let's see how quick I am producing them. This is asexual reproduction. We are just producing a lot of children. Look at that. A whole lot of children. So the process is very, very quick. Look how many children I have just now. The process is very, very quick in asexual reproduction. Large number of offspring can be produced. And we need to pay attention to that. Now, the offspring can be produced continually, as you saw me doing there just now. I was really producing my offspring really, really quickly because I'm just using a part of me to get the offspring. Now, the offspring can make good. The offsprings can make good. All right, so we're saying that the offspring can make good use of the environment, providing that it is a favorable condition to them. So we're going to be looking at the ill to that. Now, another thing is that when I had this here, we severed it. This is a good quality offspring. You see, it's white and nice and not oxidized. So once it is of good quality, when we create the offspring, we are sure that the offspring is also of good quality. But suppose this were, for example, an offspring. Suppose this was, for example, like this paper here. So you see this paper have this blotted thing. It have its own problem already. And this paper doesn't have any problem. But when these mate, now you are going to find that the offspring is going to come with this blot, with this unfavorable characteristic. While if we never go around and find mate and we just reproduce ourselves, because we have favorable characteristic, then would maintain this. So that is one of the plus to it. If you have desirable characteristic, then the desirable characters will continue in your gene pool. Now, a disadvantage around asexual reproduction, and this is something for us to pay attention to, and there are many. If the environment is unfavorable, because they are all the same, and things become bad, you might have a total wipeout of a species. You might have a total wipeout. Now, if appearance is of poor quality, then you understand the offspring definitely will be of poor quality. Now, another thing you saw when I created my offspring here, remember I created a lot of offspring here? Look at that. The possibility of overcrowding is possible, right? So with that, the possibility, a lot of them pretty much being in the same area, we have to be mindful of that. So that is what asexual reproduction in a nutshell is, pretty much just using a part of the parent to create the offspring. And using that part could be any part. All right? Then we have sexual reproduction, which is one that most persons like because it has a sexual sound in it. Now, with sexual reproduction, it requires two parents. Needing two parents does not mean that the two parents have to be there. All that we need the egg from the woman and we need the sperm from the man. We don't even need to know them. And then after we would have performed that fusion of a male and female gamete, we could just implant that in a surrogate mother for it to grow. We don't need to know the real mother and the real father. So there you realize that sex is not so important. Great. Now, the advantage of sexual reproduction is that there is a variation. So if we are talking about asexual, it is mitosis. The diploid number of chromosomes is passed on. If we are talking about sexual reproduction, we are talking about meiosis. We are talking about meiosis. And here, with meiosis, what is happening? It is that it's a haploid number of chromosome that is passed on. What that means is that it's half the number. So you and I, we have 46 chromosomes. So 23 from mom, 23 from dad, and we are going to have 4 daughter cells being produced. So with mitosis, it is 2 daughter cells. In meiosis, it is 4 daughter cells. Let us continue. Now, the species may be better able to colonize new area because there's variation. Some will be able to do, some will evolve, and so on. So those are some very, very important points. Now, if a parent is of a poor quality stock, you could upbreed, you know that you could work on the gene pool. So take, for example, if you're black, you must stay back. I'm fine being black. If you're black, you must stay back. I hope that you can understand the Creole. I'm so sorry. So if you're black, then you probably should have been around the back. So you don't want that for your offspring. So what you tend to do is to find someone of lighter complexion and you will mate with that person in order to just put a little milk in your coffee. Or you don't want that hair that we brought from Africa with us. You want the hair from India. So you'll just find someone with that type of hair and you have that type of offspring. They say that these are desirable traits. I don't know what is desirable trait, but I'm just using the norm as it were out there. So with sexual reproduction, you can put a little milk in your coffee. You can make the thing lighten up. You don't have to go buy no bleaching cream and bleach and then come back black next week. You don't need to do that. You could just probably find somebody that is a little, lighter complexion than you and do a little random selection, random mating. You realize variation coming about? Yeah, variation. That wasn't the case with asexual reproduction. But with sexual reproduction, you are seeing here that variation is coming about. Another thing is that I said genetic variation. I said the species can colonize new area. I also said that I think I covered most of the salient point, as it were, for sexual reproduction. Those are some of the salient point. Now, the disadvantage is that this is an inefficient process. You know that sometimes, I know some persons here, especially the adult learner, they can tell you that they have been searching for a husband since they were 1 year old. And now they are 500-year old and the husband is nowhere close in sight, right? So it takes a whole lot of time to find mate. Now, the offsprings are not produced continuously. Now, take for example, you and I. We are so inefficient. It takes us 9 months or 10 months thereof in order to produce an offspring. Could that ever be good? No, it's too long. Can you think about an elephant? Oh, wow, 18 months. That's too long. That's an inefficient process. So sexual reproduction, it takes you a long time to produce. And of course, it's an inefficient process. All right. Another thing that we could look at disadvantage is that the offsprings, we said that the offsprings are not produced continually. And we say that it takes a lot of time to find mate. And we are saying that the offspring may be produced. Okay, we did say that. We said that it takes a lot of time to have offspring, so not much offspring that we're going to have. All right. Um, with sexual reproduction, because we spoke about variation, there is a possibility that nice, sexy Mr. Wilson and some white chest something and something, I might very well find a woman who like the physiques and like the flavor and thing like that, and she have fear a little bug in her fear genes. She has a bug in her genes. And because she wants to have the superior flavor to her coffee, then you know that she came over and you know what happened. And then, even though I am the superior stock, the offspring now is not as superior as the father. So with variation comes the good, and with variation comes the bad. So that is it in a nutshell for both sexual and asexual reproduction. They say that it is going to be on the paper. So if it's even for 1 mark, you're going to see it somewhere. Now, reproduction in human, I am hoping that they won't send this for the ovary as it make eggs. I hope they won't send that. You might see the sperms. It's really, really rare that they send the sperm to label, but you might see it. We have seen the female reproductive organ feature on a lot of paper because the female reproductive organ getting a whole lot of problem, you know. The female reproductive organ is having cervical cancer that is taking a whole lot of life. The female reproductive organ is really overpopulating the planet. The female reproductive organ is causing violence against women. The female reproductive organ is so much trending that they have to pay attention to it. The male reproductive organ is not so bad. It's not much men taking Viagra because they're ashamed to take Viagra. But of course, some man taking Viagra and it's killing them. So you want to stay away from that. So of course, the female reproductive organ could be featured on the paper, as well as the male reproductive organ could be featured on the paper. But we have seen the female reproductive organ featured in the last 6 years, since 2016 and now. We would have seen it on the paper at least a minimum of 4 times since 2016. So 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So in 6 years, we would have seen it about 4 or 5 times on the paper. We have seen the menstrual cycle on the paper, I think 1 time within that 6 years. So any of those could be featured on the paper. And we did a past paper on that in one of the live sessions that we had. So, of course, the female or male reproductive organ could be featured. They might ask you to draw it. Now, if they say to draw a diagram, do a diagram. Draw it how you can draw it. Don't bother think that you're going to you're going to cut somebody and draw it exact. It's a diagram, hey? If it's a diagram, it is just a mere sketch representation of what it is. Don't go and do any sketch drawing. Draw straight with your pencil. It might not draw so good, but label and annotate the part. If they say you must do a drawing, it has to be accurate. And you have to put a magnification if they say you must do a drawing. If they are going to give you a drawing to do, they are going to give you the thing on the paper, and it is what is on the paper you will have to draw to whatever magnification. Woohoo! I hope to God they don't give you that because I know some of you can't even draw a circle or a square. All right, great. So then we move over to the menstrual cycle. And the beauty about the menstrual cycle, we spoke about that at length. We spoke about estrogen. Once you start go up the hill, it's estrogen. And when you get to the top of hill over there, so we are going to have progesterone. And when you get right in the middle of the hill somewhere there, so you are going to have ovulation taking place and all of that. Right? So don't bother going to the exam and when you look on the menstrual cycle, you say, hey, me now I go deal with this. No, 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 no. All you need to remember about the menstrual cycle is what the estrogen does, what the progesterone does, where ovulation takes place, that type of thing. So remember that the estrogen prepares the wall, the progesterone maintain the wall. So just those two things you need to know for the menstrual cycle and know that ovulation is taking place somewhere in the middle there. Remember, it's not every day of the week a woman can get pregnant. You know, all my life I was growing up thinking that once a woman has sex and there is sperms and that type of thing, a baby going to come. Yeah, I thought that way when I was growing up. I didn't know that there was special time for a woman to get pregnant during the period that she's ovulating. All right, good. So you want to understand the difference between copulation. Copulation is when you have a da da do da 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 di. That is copulation. Then after copulation, you are going to have fertilization. Now, fertilization takes place up into the fallopian tube. Up in another tube up there, so one go over so, one go over so like so. Up there, so it take place. Right? Good. After the egg, the sperm meet the egg up at the part of the so, then it will come down now in the side of the uterus or the way you call the womb. And that's where you're going to have implantation. Now, ovulation is taking place over the part of over like so, over here, so with the over there. Ovulation is just the egg being released. All right, so understand. First, you are going to have copulation, copulation. So that is where you go to church and you clap. That is copulation. And then after copulation, you are going to have fertilization. Fertilization is when you stop clap now and then you find that everything come together like this. All right, so this is fertilization. All right, the egg and the sperm come together. Now, after they come together now, they have to start walking together. It's like they get married now. So they start walking together. And where is the church? The church is in the womb. So they're going to go down to the womb and they're going to be down there for 9 months. This is a very long church service. So they are going to be in the womb there for a lengthy time, right? Conducting this service to make sure that everything is right. And then you can imagine after this wedding now what is going to happen. You have this nice little bouncing baby boy or girl coming out. All because you went to church and you started to Z and then all of that and that and that. All right, so you need to know that. All right, great. And remember, the menstrual cycle begins on the first day of your period and it lasts about 28 days thereof. About the middle of the cycle, about 14 days thereof, it is really, really unsafe. When I'm teaching the menstrual cycle, I mean, why we should talk about the safe period, I always put my disclaimer out there. I am not asking you to go out there and work any experiment as to which day of the week you can get pregnant. Because your cycle might very well differ than your classmate's cycle. And before you know it, Mr. Wilson have to come and look for you or come and build somebody, and I don't want to do that. All right? Great. So we want to just glance at the menstrual cycle. I have not seen on the biology paper for quite some time, if any at all. There is this diagram that shows the development of the embryo and fetus. I pray to God they don't send it. But if you want to glance at that where fertilization thing is, it would be nice if you glance on it. If you see it and you don't know what to do, just start label something with common sense here, brother. So it's better just glance at it that you can at least label something with common sense. Then there is this thing now where the baby is in the womb. That diagram to be labeled. A long time in a see it on the exam paper still no. But they could put it on the exam paper, but I pray to God they don't put it on the exam paper because most teachers don't focus on it. The thing with the amniotic sac and the amnion water bag and the umbilical cord, if you don't know what to do and you see it on the exam, just start write something where they read about a primary school. Don't leave it blank. Just start write something where they read about a primary school. I hope that I'm not over your head with the Creole because I know I am going English, Jamaican, and Creole. You guys are really good enough because I'm speaking in 3 languages and you understand me. You guys are multilingual. I tell you, I'm using 3 languages: English, Jamaican, and Patois. And you guys are doing well. All right, great. So then we have to remember that when it comes to pregnancy, there's also drugs that is involved. Persons are taking drugs because of the social ill. Sir, be nervous. Don't be nervous, man. It's fine. It's fine. All right, I'm going to put some more humor in it. All right, so we have the birth and all of that, and then we get on over. I hardly sleep. That is fine. That is normal. It means that you are fine. If you are nervous, you are fine. If you are having a diarrhea, you are fine. If you didn't sleep last night, you are fine. All right? If you are worried now, you are fine. And if you are not worried, you could be fine as well. All right? But this is a time where you are responding to a stimulus. So if sensitivity and coordination were to be on the paper, then you would give a good example of response to stimulus. Now, remember, when it comes to contraceptive, there are contraceptive that work different way. You have the barrier method. What the barrier method does, it does not allow you to go into the church. It's like a security guard out at the gate. And if you go into the church, it's like it put you in a plastic bag. I'm having an itch here. You put it in a plastic bag. So that would have been things like the condom and the diaphragm and the cap. They are barrier methods. Now remember that the condom is the most effective for against STI. It does not mean that if you wear a condom, you won't contract STI. It does not mean that. But it means that it reduces the chance of you catching an STI. So you have to remember that. Then there are the surgical methods, which include tubal ligation. Remember that woman always have black tube. So when you hear tubal ligation, that's for the woman. And then you have vasectomy. That is for the male. Those are the surgical method. And they are expensive, but most times reliable. I am not going to tell any woman what to cut or what not to cut. So it is up to who want to cut what. That's not my thing. Then there is this thing now. Who am I to tell you whether you should or should not do it? The one that says abstinence. So you should abstain, stay away, don't walk in the rain, because if you walk in the rain, you might get wet. So they are saying don't go outside any at all, because if you go outside, you will definitely get wet because it might rain. Then we have the hormonal methods, the injection, the pill, the morning after, yeah, and they have many names. You have Pregna, you have Pastinor, you have all of them. I don't know them because they don't sell man. I don't know why they don't sell man, because the size of my belly now, I think probably well, I'm not doing that, so it's going to be pregnant. All right, great. So you have the surgical method, and then you have, I didn't talk about IUD, which is going to need a doctor to implant, which is a copper T and a coil that these trick the body that it is pregnant. Just glance over that table. I am almost certain that you are going to see something like that on the paper. All right. HIV is a real possibility. Remember that HIV is not the same thing as AIDS. HIV pretty much leads to AIDS. All right. So Arthur is not the same thing as Jamaica, but Arthur is a place in Jamaica. All right. So that we have to remember. Then there's always, I am seeing on the paper last night where they carry the 3Ds of environmental science: social, economical, and environmental. Social, like it says, social study. What go on in your yard? How it affect your yard? How is it affecting you? Are you going to fall out of school? Are you going to go cuckoo? Are you going to start drinking alcohol? Are you going to malice your neighbor? Are you going to start walking to work and not drive because they are calling you bun up gun Tony? No, 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 no. That is a social thing. How are you going to live with people? How is it going to affect your social mobility? Will you be able to continue school? Will you be going to university? That is the social aspect. Then the economical aspect is pretty much the the money part. Are you going to lose income? The country will lose income. So you always have to think about that once you're in science, the 3Ds: social, economical, environmental. The environment. Once you start talking about environment and organism, one thing you want to talk about is the organism going into what we call the extinction vortex, or the organism becoming extinct. Or like when we talk about the extinction vortex, we can talk about the animal now falling on the edge. So if you're on the edge, it means you soon fall off. So it means that you are threatened, you are endangered, you soon fall off, you're on the edge, right? And these are some probably big environmental science terms, but you can use them. I'm giving you them. They're not patented. All right, so anything that affect money is going to be the economical. So don't go in there and see that and don't know what to write. There's always a story to write. Just write a story that you learn in English and you should be fine. So that was reproduction in animals. We continue with reproduction in plants. Now, reproduction in plants, I have not seen that on the paper for quite a while. And the reproduction in plant, the reproductive organ in a plant is a flower, right? So you probably need to label the flower, the petal, the filament, the anther, the stigma, the sepal, the receptacle, all of those stuff. I don't know. You can probably check that out, right? And if we are going to talk about the structure of the flowers and the parts of the flower, then we have to think a little bit about pollination. Now, there are two types of pollination. Let me just deal with this very quickly. There is self-pollination, which means that pollination is taking place on me. Self. It is taking place on me. Then there is cross-pollination. It is leaving me and going over there, or it is leaving over there and coming to me. Now, self-pollination could be on the same plant or the same flower, but once it's cross-pollination, it is moving from here, so going over there. So if you go into the exam and you see a flower with a fluorescent, something like a tube, that is an insect-pollinated plant. If you see the anther come up and it look like some feather something, some fancy something like it there on your cap, like so you know the royal something, that is wind pollinated. All right. So you need to know a little bit about the adaptation of the plant for pollination. Usually plants that are pollinated by insect, they are brightly colored, they tend to have nectary, produce nectar for the insect to get, and sometimes they are sweetly scented. All right. Now, all the plants that are of the Poaceae or Gramineaceae family, grass family, bamboo grass, cane, they are pretty much wind pollinated. In most cases, they are looking at wind versus insect pollinated, but there's also those plants. Remember that there's also those plants that are pollinated with water, right? Now, another thing that you could see is this diagram for fertilization and the development of a seed. That is not a difficult diagram. Just glance at it in your book. I am not telling you anything now that you can't do. Just glance at some stuff. All right? Glance. That is reproduction. Remember, reproduction coming. No, they haven't brought the you could look at seed dispersal, but I've never seen anything big on seed dispersal on the paper. Now remember that seed dispersal can be done by wind. I don't know if you know Mary, those little seed floating in the air like that. Wind dispersal. You have explosion, boom! That's all the legumes. Explosion. Then you have animal dispersal, which has the widest adaptation. Like the plant modify the seed so that you have to want to move the seed. So take for example, you get a nice mango. Or mechanical. Yeah, explosion mechanical. Now take for example, you get a nice juicy mango. So you eat this mango, and while you're going down the road, then you disperse the seed down there. So right? So you see now that with sexual reproduction, you are dispersing the seed. You didn't even know that you are planting the seed somewhere, right? Another thing with animal dispersal is that sometimes the seeds come with little barb on it, like burr when you walk through some bush and you get some burr stick onto your clothes or to your skin. So sometimes it's an adhesive, a glue, or sometimes it's like a velvet, or sometimes it's like a hook. Any of the three could be used as animal dispersal. So seeds that are dispersed by animal, they either have adhesive or they are brightly colored or brightly scented. Then there are those that are dispersed by water. Dispersed must just mean move from one place to another. Those that are dispersed by water, they are buoyant, like coconut. Every time you go to the sea, you see a coconut on the beach, and you say, "Who could carry a coconut here?" They are buoyant. They can float on water, and the popular one is coconut. So I did wind, I did mechanical, which is explosion. I did animal, and I did water. Water is buoyant. All right. So all it is a crash course that I'm doing now. Now, if you look at the parts of a fruit has the outside part named epicarp. Then you have the middle part when named mesocarp, and then you have down at the seed part when named endocarp. All right. I don't know how you managing this morning because I'm using three languages and I don't know. Probably if I know a little patois like Buenos Dias or Buenos Tardes or something like that, I'll just make a fourth language this morning. I could just create one along the way that was Mesolic or Basilic, something to that effect. All right, great. So that would take, I think I want you though to look at this diagram with fertilization in plant. I think for some reason, I think I like it. I think I like it. Fertilization and development of a seed. I think I like that diagram. All right. So let me just go back to the control that I'm using. So that would have covered reproduction in both plants and animal. Some of the things that you want to glance at. Don't go to the exam with a system overload though. Just go take it easy. Get yourself something to drink before you go into the exam. Stretch. Take out the paper, look at it, put your hand by your head, make a neck stretch like so. You know? Apologize. Stretch out the thing. Don't make any sound now. And then you get your little pencil or your thing and you start right. So we look at transport, we look at excretion, we look at reproduction, continuity and variation. Most persons, well, I did a whole lot of crosses with genetics, but continuity and variation, as it were, with evolution and so on. I don't know how many persons are comfortable with that. Nutrition, photosynthesis. I think I probably should go back around on photosynthesis because most of you will be stronger on photosynthesis. Biotic and abiotic factor. Remember that the distribution of any organism is going to be dependent on biotic and abiotic factor. The distribution of any organism is going to be dependent on biotic and abiotic factors. Now, the biotic factors are bio mean life. So those are in relation to the relationship between organisms. So the lion eating, the predator-prey relationship, the competition, this all the symbiotic stuff, disease and all of them stuff, that is the whole concept around. So we're at the front part of the syllabus. I'm all over the place with you. Follow me. So when we look at that biotic, if we look at that video that I put out on symbiosis, a whole lot is in that. The biotic factors, probably I just need to just go to the book and just go through that very quickly. I always like this diagram. Which book am I using? I am using a Lydia Atawu book, Lydia Atawu Ali. But this is a paid version. But usually when I go to Kingston Bookshop, whole heap of advertisement in. Sometimes they give me a little book when I go to these seminars. Not that they know me or even love me, because they don't even know my name. I don't exist in their book, but I get it. All right. So when we talk about the growth of a population, that could be looked at with the sigmoid growth curve. You remember last night I drew the S curve, and it has some meaning. That's why we're teaching you how to interpret the graph last night. So it starts off on a low like this. You know, you went into a new scheme to live, and when you went there, you have to feel out the girls first. You can't just run into a relationship. And then you find a girl who speaks your language, then you start to, you and start meet more often, right? And things really, really nice now. So things start get a little more. You see, it start take a different turn. You start to each other more often. And you start, it was so nice to see. I'm just so nice. I want you to meet him one day. That is when the things start turn like so, right? And then now, after it start turn like so, and I go good, down here, so when it start off slow, and then when the things start, him start come on your veranda. Right here, so it turn up, him start come on your veranda. And then things start go good. And then you start call your friend and tell your friend about him. And then things start go really that slant way here now. Things are go that slant way here now. And then now, him get in your house. Poopa Jesus. When him get in your house, then things start go like so now. It start curve like so now. And because him stay in your house too long, Poopa Jesus, then it start go down so. So the environment is pretty much like that analogy. I'm sure you understand everything I said just now. So the environment is just like that. What you're going to find is that as soon as organisms colonize a new area, they will start very, very slow. The numbers will be low, and then it will take time as soon as there is adequate water. Let me put it this way. Let me use the language. As once the biotic and abiotic factors are favorable in the environment, then the organism will pretty much start growing. They will grow to a point of exponential growth. Now, with exponential growth, they are going up diagonal on the graph, and they might even take something like a J shape, something like that. But a J shape is not, a J curve is not a reality in the environment. A J curve is not a reality in the environment. Everything will face some amount of resistance. We saw last night when we were looking at carbon dioxide and how plants are not photosynthesizing more. Everything has resistance. So as the thing goes up like that, what is going to happen is that it's going to face environmental resistance. And the environmental resistance that it's going to face is either going to be biotic or abiotic. So it's either that it's going to have disease, or it's going to face some predator, or it's going to face competition. Either of the three will cause it to start dying back. Or the abiotic factors, which I don't like to call the non-living factor. The abiotic factor, those geographic factor, the rain, too much rain or too little rain, too hot or too cold, too windy or not. The topography of the land type is not ideal. The pH of the soil is somewhat off. The acidity of the soil is somewhat off. The salinity of the soil is somewhat off. All of those are the abiotic factors, right? The things that the agriculture is going to measure about the soil, the water, the wind, the sunlight, the humidity, all of those, the turbidity of the water, all of those are turbidity speeds how murky the water is, where they can see through the water column. All right. So all of those are abiotic factor. So once an organism, I have a thing here, but I'm not wearing my glasses. I have a thing here, and it's looking at some things that cause population to grow. Now, anything that causes population to grow, the reverse will cause it to decline. You have to remember that. All right. So you are supposed to be looking at that. When you look at biotic and abiotic factor, you are going to be looking at factors which are influence the growth of a population. And those things that you heard in news, they are true. You can look at them. You might be called upon to use the reuse, reduce, and recycle. And of course, you might look at the importance or the difficulties there are in sorting and pretty much getting rid of garbage. We looked at the carbon cycle. I told you that there's a big possibility that that will be there. Food chain, food web, ecological pyramids, pyramid of biomass, pyramid of number might be covered somewhere there. Biomagnification, bioaccumulation, once you talk about food chain, food web, that's a real possibility. Biotic factor and abiotic factor, here we are looking at them now. So we are talking about ecosystem, habitat, population, community. Remember the hierarchy, you see? When you look at this thing, it started from chemistry and goes right up to geography. I'm going to tell you what I mean as the truck pass, after the truck would have passed. All right, so I'm just going to touch specifically biotic and abiotic factor as the syllabus would have had it, or as the broad topic would have had it. So it means that you are going to need to know a little bit about ecology, and they could carry any of the ecology sampling method. Now, when you talk about ecology, it's pretty much a study on the relationship of organism with each other and pretty much their environment. Now, the environmental factors are either going to be biotic or abiotic factor, as we have been saying since morning. And like I say, I don't like to say abiotic is a non-living because every time I tell students that you put it on an exam, they say that abiotic factor refers to the desk and the chair. Those are examples of abiotic factor. Desk and chair are not examples of abiotic factors. All right. And then we have the biotic, which is, well, definitely the living component. Now, the abiotic factor refers to the physical factors, which include, like I said earlier, temperature, those things that have to do with climate, soil, those type of things, topography, all of those things, those would have actually been in your abiotic. And I made some example earlier. And then we talk about the biotic factor, and I named a number of things like disease, camouflage, pollination, seed dispersal, how organism move, right? How organism move, how organism survive, all of that would have pretty much been in your biotic factor. You have to put in symbiosis and of course, things like predation, competition, disease. Those are also involved in your abiotic factor. Now, then we go on down to what we talk about an ecosystem. What is an ecosystem really, and what supports an ecosystem? And this is when you will come upon the word like niche. So niche is the role of the organism in the ecosystem. What the organism does, what's the interaction of the organism in the ecosystem. And you might see that when they ask you about a food chain, what is the role of the consumer, right? So that they are now looking at the niche. When they say role, sometimes it's what they eat, talking about the role, but it pretty much could be interpreted as the niche as well. Now, we have to now look at the hierarchical development in an ecosystem, and remember the word species. Species refers to the organisms that are able to interbreed. Now, organisms that are able to interbreed, they will have species, and then when we have many of the same species in one place, we are going to, no, let me just go right back. Reverse. Let me go again. So for you and I, we started from organelles, cells, tissue, organ, system, organism that we refer to as a species. And then from this organism, when we have a lot of the same species together, a lot of the same organism together, we have a population. A population is made up of one type of organism, the human population, right? A pride of lion population, an orchard of coconut population. Then we have different populations together. We have the rat and the mongoose and the roach and the crocodile and the iguana from over there in Cayman, and Mr. Wilson, the human population. Then we have a mixture of population. Then we have what is called a community. So when you see community on the paper, don't write that community is a place where people live. A community is a combination of different population. And then after we have community, we are now going over into ecosystem. But wherever an organism is found or live is referred to as the organism's habitat. So we touched some salient point there: habitat, niche, species, community, population. A lot of things. Yeah, disease is a part of biotic. We touch all those. Now, we said that the distribution of any organism is always going to be dependent on the biotic and abiotic factor. If it is not favorable for them, they are not going to be found there. If you take, for example, the red mangrove, the white mangrove, and the black mangrove, the red mangrove would have been closer to water. Then as we move away, then we are going to find the black mangrove. Then we are going to find the white mangrove further inland. And then after the white mangrove, we have the button mangrove, which is even further inland. Most persons wouldn't have heard about that or know that one, but it's popular around hotels as flowers, this green silver looking plant. Then we have lights. I really don't want to get into the details of this because I will go really far and I don't want to do that this morning. So we could look at how lights, you know that when it comes to light, organism could be looked at or classified as being nocturnal. Hey, Mr. Lewis, organism could be classified as being nocturnal, meaning that they comes out at night or they do better at night. And organism could also be classified as diurnal, which means that they do better during the day, right? So you and I, we are diurnal, even though we keep going to party and dance all night. We are diurnal. All right, great. Now, the effect of temperature on the distribution of organism, you're going to find the camels and those stuff that are specially adapted to the desert because they have pretty long eyelash. The camel has a stick mouth that it can eat the cactus and so on. So you'll realize that based on the distribution of organism, it has some favorable characteristic in order for it to be there. If you take, for example, the wood lice and the millipedes and so on, they are found in compost heap because they really can't take the harsh, hot environment. The body will be dried out, I would say desiccated. So they are found where they are. If you take, for example, the polar bear, it has a thick layer of fat, so it's found up North Pole. You and I couldn't go there, it's too cold for us. So depending on the environmental condition or the biome, it will also influence the distribution of organism. All right. If I should use an analogy, if you're not a Christian, then more than likely you will find your church probably just 3 times for the year. It's Christmas, New Year, and Easter, right? So things are not favorable there for you, you're not going to be there. But if you're an avid dance goer, if you're a party lover, every weekend probably you are going to be there. All right. So once the environmental condition favors the organism, then it is going to be there, or that will dictate the distribution of the organism. And what we're talking about, we're talking probably about the type of soil. We're going to talk about the pH of the soil could affect what grows where. For example, in my book, when I spoke about that mystery tree, the tree grows at high elevation. In Jamaica, when we talk about the coffee, the Jamaican coffee, if a coffee is not grown at high elevation, it doesn't have that same potency, right? If you think about strawberry, strawberry is grown in the hills of Manchester because it's very, very cold. However, mango is grown well in Yalas because Yalas is very hot, right? And if you think, for example, the distribution, cashew is found in Clarendon, flat, hot plains. All right. So I'm just talking about things that are found in Jamaica and where they are found, and it is as a result of the distribution. When you take, for example, Clarendon, which is very, very hot, you are going to find a whole lot of scorpion in Clarendon because it enjoys that temperature. You're not going to find a lot of scorpion in the hills of St. Thomas. You are going to find the giant millipedes because it's a little more moist and a little cooler environment with lush vegetation. So then these organisms will find food easily there. So depending on what is happening in the area, that will of course influence the distribution of the organism. Then we have the feeding relationship where we talk about producers and consumers. Remember that your food chain begins with a plant, not with the sun. It begins with a plant, not with the sun. Now, in the food chain or the food web, the organism that has the highest or gets the highest energy, or is with the highest energy, is going to be the plant because it's capturing that energy from the sun. So the closer you are to the plant, the more energy that you will get. It's not the size of the animal, as it were, for the food chain and the food web. It is dependent on how close you are to the plant, right? As you move away from the plant, you are losing energy. So you are losing energy to respiration, you are losing energy to digestion, you are losing energy to respiration. You have to know that. And then after you die, that is where the decomposer come in here because it is going to help to break you down to release that trapped energy, that trapped nutrient, so that other organisms can have it to use. Remember, in your food chain, each animal represents a trophic level. In your food chain, each animal represents a trophic level. All right, great. So if you're asked how many trophic level, if it's a food chain, you count it. If you're asked how many trophic level for the food web, then you start at the plant and you try to count the longest, the one with the most arrow going connected. You try to count that, and that will give you the longest food chain. All right, so there are some words that we need to know. Herbivores are organisms that feed on plant only. And the relationship between a plant and a herbivore is a predator-prey relationship, right? Where the herbivore is the predator and the plant here is the prey. And then we have carnivorous relationship where this organism is eating meat only. And then we have omnivore relationship. Omnivore. Omnivores are organisms like pig and human that eat both plants and meat. So don't go to your food chain and talk about producer, herbivore, carnivore, omnivore. No. If it is an omnivore, then it must have two arrows attached to it, one from an animal and one from a plant. So get that right. All right, please, we don't really want to have you go into the exam to make that type of a mistake. All right, so then we have the food chain, and we spoke about the food chain. I spoke about the different trophic level. You have the first trophic level, second trophic level, and it goes up to quaternary trophic level. And we have the predator-prey relationship, and it is the predator-prey relationship that we use as biological control. The predator-prey relationship, that's what we use as biological control. Then we have the food web. Now, when it gets to the food web, If you remove one organism, it could have different effect on other organisms. So if you remove one organism, it could cause another set of organisms to increase in number, or it could cause another set of organisms to decrease in number, depending on how the arrows are connected. So for example, if you remove the organism here, there's a possibility that the organism down here will increase in number. However, the one that was above that is feeding on it could increase in number. Probably it has to migrate, or probably it has to feed on something else. So there are three possibilities for the organism that is above. It could migrate, it could feed on something else, it could very well die. All right, so any of those are possible. So remember, once you move an organism from the ecosystem, and that is what we said about biological control, is that with the biological control, it might not be the most effective method because you cannot kill all the organism. Because if you kill all the organism, the organism that you brought in, the predator, won't have anything else to eat and it will just turn on something else, as is the case with mongoose in Jamaica. All right, so the food web, that is the topical thing there for the food web. We spoke about decomposers, and decomposers, they have to do with, we'll talk about decomposers and detritivore. Both are classified under saprophytic nutrition. Remember that there are three types of nutrition. Autotrophic comes first, that's plants making their own food. Heterotrophic comes second, they rely on the plant for food. So when we talk about autotrophic nutrition, we're talking about the organism being able to convert simple inorganic substances into organic substance. While with heterotrophic nutrition, they are using organic substance that was pretty much made by the autotroph for their food. Then we have the saprophytic nutrition, which is pretty much feeding on the remains of organism. And they are doing this, breaking it down, releasing what they feed on is called detritus, releasing nutrient for other organism. All right, so if we were supposed to look at the size between decomposers and detritivore, decomposers are smaller because these are going to be your fungi and bacterium. And the detritivore, they are going to be like your wood lice, your millipedes, your, you name them, worms, earthworm, that type of thing. So the detritivores, they are larger than the decomposer. Then we have some special relationship. We refer to them as symbiosis. So symbiosis speaks to some relationship. And in this relationship, the three primary ones are mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Once it's mutualism, there are some examples, they never change them. It's the same ones that are in the book. In some cases, they might tweak it because they don't want you to have this rote learning. So if it is mutualism, both organisms are benefiting. Both. All right, mutual, we are both benefiting. You have like the cattle and the egret, where the egret is eating the ticks from the cattle. However, the relationship between the cattle and the egret could be commensal, where the cattle is walking through the grass and the egret is walking behind and feeding. Now, that is a commensal relationship. Now, there's also the popular one that you could see on the paper with the sea anemone and the clownfish. You could have seen the sea anemone and the hermit crab. That's another example of mutualism. You could see the leguminous plant crop with the rhizobium bacteria in the root nodules of the plant. That's another mutualistic relationship. You could also see for commensalism, you could see commensalism is where you have the epiphyte. One is benefiting, but the other is harming in no way, shape, or form. So a plant growing on a plant growing on the light wire, that type of thing. We spoke about the egret and the cattle, and you have the shark and the remora. The shark and the remora, where the remora attaches itself to the shark, get a free ride around the place, and get some free food, doesn't affect the shark. And then we have parasitism, and with parasitism, we are going to have two types of parasite. We are going to have endoparasite. Those are the parasites that are found within, like we spoke last night about the dog with the worms on the inside. All right, so that's a parasite. Ectoparasite, they're on the outside, like ticks, lice, flea. All of those are ectoparasite. And what parasites do, they feed on the organism, causing the organism harm. Now, please be reminded that a baby feeding from its mother, even if the mother didn't eat anything for the last 2 weeks and the baby is feeding on the mother, it is not a parasitic relationship. A parasitic relationship is between different species. All right? So even if I am taking away all my father's stuff, it's not a parasitic relationship. In the sense of parasitism, it's different species. All right? Great. So another thing that we need to know, that is something I needed to point out. Another thing we need to know, if you find a fungus on a dead tree, all right, that is not a parasitic relationship. In order for it to be a parasite, it must cause something harm. And the tree that is dead with the fungus is not causing it any harm. All right, so we have to be mindful of those little trick questions. Once we are able to navigate our way through that, then we would be fine. Remember that organisms are pretty much losing energy. It's not the safe thing to say for physics, but they are losing energy to respiration. I said those three earlier, egestion and excretion. They are losing energy there. And then we talk about the pyramids. The pyramids is not going to be so big as far as I know. If you were doing environmental science, it would have been big. And then we talk about bioaccumulation, where the thing is stored up inside of the organism. So you have one caterpillar and it got some poison from the insecticide the farmer sprayed. And then after that poison, then you would have probably, I don't know what would eat it. Probably a lizard would eat that caterpillar. But that lizard wouldn't eat one caterpillar. The lizard would pretty much eat probably two caterpillar, or three caterpillar, or four caterpillar, or five caterpillar. And then what you find happening is that the toxin is pretty much storing in that lizard, and then probably a fowl go and eat one lizard, and the one lizard would have killed the fowl. So that is accumulation. It is accumulating. Then you have what we call biomagnification, where we have that caterpillar eating the toxic plant, a lizard eating that toxic caterpillar or some toxic caterpillar. Then we have a fowl now or a bird now eating probably more of that lizard. So take for example one caterpillar, that is 1 unit of poison. The lizard is going to eat 10 caterpillars, so you understand the lizard get 10 units of poison. Then our chicken might eat two lizards. So 2 times 10, that is 20 units of caterpillar. And then you and I might eat 3 birds. So 3 times 20, we get 60 units of poison. So you say, oh, I just eat a chicken and I died. That is what you call now biomagnification. So through the food chain, the poison was pretty much multiplying, getting more toxic as it passes through the food chain. So we have to be mindful of that. Hence the reason that we ban DDT, because it doesn't break down well in nature and it has this residual effect. Remember that the carbon cycle is just powered by 4 processes. The first process is photosynthesis. That is how carbon dioxide leave the living world, leave the environment into the living world. Now, after carbon dioxide gets into the plant will respire to stay alive, so it will give back carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. But the plant will eventually die, and then you will have microbes working on it, and they are going to respire and give back carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. So we have respiration and photosynthesis. Now, while these microbes work, or there are some plants that will die, and animal will die, and they'll just go beneath the earth, like when you bury somebody, and they are going to be there, and they are going to become fossil. So they might make fossil fuel, as in oil, coal, that type of a thing, after a while, fossilization. And fossil, we tend to burn fossil to get the energy from it. Then when we burn this fossil to get the energy, that is combustion, right? And it gives off carbon dioxide. So there are 4 processes: photosynthesis, respiration, fossilization, and combustion. I showed you all in the past papers. I would have worked over the couple of days we have been doing past papers. The carbon cycle, or carbon, is a greenhouse gas. What greenhouse means is that it's a gas that traps heat into the Earth's atmosphere. It is the 4th most prevalent gas, greenhouse gas, or the 4th most prevalent gas in the atmosphere. It is not the only greenhouse gas. You have methane that comes naturally. You have water vapor. You have nitrous oxides. And you have the chlorofluorocarbon, which is, of course, man-made. All of those are greenhouse gases. Now, the question is, which is going to be on your paper, how is it that man would have contributed to the amount of carbon in the atmosphere? Now, we can contribute to carbon in the atmosphere by the burning of fossil fuel, by increasing our population and respiring more, by, tell me something else, burning, population, what I've forgotten something. I have forgotten something. While I keep talking, I might remember. Oh, deforestation. When we cut down plants, then what happens is that the plant that should absorb the carbon dioxide, they are no longer there. So deforestation. Slash and burn, we also do that. When we make cement, we also add carbon to the atmosphere. You understand that we are breaking down those rocks and so on. So that is also responsible there. Remember that your exam is 9 o'clock. It is now 8 o'clock. So if you need to get ready to go to the exam, you need to do that. You really don't want to sit here listening to Mr. Wilson and you're late for the exam. The truth is that it's the exam that you need to do. So depending on where you are, I expect you to be taking your leave now to reach your exam center on time. All right. If you have a phone and you want to walk with it, you want to do that. But you need to have yourself about 5 minutes before the exam. I think you need to get into the exam about 15 minutes before the exam. So you want to make sure that you are there on time. All right. Get yourself something to drink before you go to the exam. You want to ensure that the brain has enough water so that it can take you through the exam. Right. I am confident that you guys are going to be doing well. No need to worry. But if you don't do well, there's always another opportunity. There is nothing better than to tell the story of the struggle you went through. So we went through nutrition, went through abiotic, we went through food chain, we went through predator-prey relationship, we went through decomposers, treatment of disease. That is so big, so I ask you to just look over for me, please. Look over for me, please. I'm looking at the 2021 January paper. The answer to this question, hypertension and diabetes are two different physiological disease. Outline how the, I don't know what should be there. I don't know, diabetes is different. I probably outline how diabetes is different from hypertension. I am just filling in words here. The paper is not properly printed. So the answer here is going to be, please listen, the answer here is going to be diabetes is caused by a deficiency of insulin. And with diabetes, what tends to happen is that the body is not producing enough insulin, or the insulin that is produced, the body is not responding to the insulin, leading to uncontrollable levels of sugar in the blood and, of course, in the urine. So with diabetes, it is because of the islet of Langerhans there in the pancreas, either not functioning, not producing enough, or if it produces, the body is not responding. That is what diabetes really is, and it allows you to have more sugar in the blood, right? So we talk about the islet of Langerhans in the pancreas, which is pretty much responsible for that. While hypertension is pretty much the persistent or having continued high blood pressure. So you always have high blood pressure, and this could have been caused because the lumen in the blood vessel is small. A number of things could cause it. It is a degenerative disease, but there are a number of things could cause it. So hypertension, persistent high blood pressure, it is mainly main cause of, it's persistent cause of high blood pressure, blood pushing against the main arteries. All right, so one of the things that causes it is the narrowing of the blood vessel, or probably you give the body too much work, too much salt, the salt intake is too high, too much fat, you have a sedentary lifestyle, all of those. So diabetes and hypertension, I think you want to know that. You can tell me this evening after the exam if what was on the paper. Well, I will know what is on the paper. I know what is on the paper. I will go to, I'll go and see, find out what is on the paper somewhere, somehow, or somebody will call me and tell me. I don't know. But by this evening, I will know. All right, great. So make your way to the exam if you are supposed to go. I was looking at what we covered and what I could just give a little punch on before you go. So treatment of disease, we know about mosquito and housefly. We know about influenza and COVID. I think I saw that on some paper. We know about asthma, though respiration will not be on, well, I don't think that is going to be on the paper because that volcano came after. All right, so that type of disease you probably have to look at. We look at transpiration, we looked at excretion, we looked at reproduction. I want to tell you one thing about meiosis. This is probably the last thing we talk about. Meiosis is pretty much twice mitosis. And with meiosis, there is something topical about meiosis we call crossing over. Crossing over is, it takes place in prophase 1, where what I do when I'm teaching this, I ask students just to cross their fingers like that, and then we'll take off the joint from this finger and put it onto the joint of this finger, and take off the joint of this finger, put on this finger, and that is what crossing over really is. What it does, it helps to create further variation. Remember that meiosis takes place with the sex cells, sperms and egg, while mitosis takes place with autosomal cell. Now, if you are seeing anything about Down syndrome, remember that Down syndrome takes place on chromosome 21. So you want to make sure that you know that. Mutation can also lead to variation in species. And if it is done by human, then we call it genetic engineering, as is in the case of golden rice and where we use the bacteria and with insulin production. And then variation, a number of things that will, environment could drive variation, genetics could drive variation. You want to look at natural selection going into the exam. And having done that, I think you have aced the exam, because what we have just done a while ago was to look at the entire paper. Now, having looked at the 6 past paper we have, and you have been doing some work, I wish for you all the best in your exams. Uh, Make sure that you do your best. Your best is good enough. Make sure that you don't go into the exam and get all stressed and flustered. Don't try to be that guardian of CXC. The center question that you should not do, and don't bother go there, right? Just see the opportunity that there is for you. I think Mahatma Gandhi said, if you want to be the change, if you want to see a change in the world, then the change, just look at yourself or change your position. I think he said you need to change your position. So just change your way of thinking. Go to the exam. Your sole emphasis is to pass the exam. Your sole emphasis is to get onto the other level. If it doesn't happen now, it doesn't mean that it won't happen again. Now, when Thomas Edison, I hope that is his name, when he was making the light bulb, um, he failed 100 times or thereabout. And he said that it was not 100 failure. He actually discovered 100 ways that the light bulb could not be made. Now, if you think about KFC, the colonel, the colonel made it when he was some 60 or 70 or thereabout. That's when his formula really took off. Look how long that was. If we are in Jamaica, I've heard the story of that lady that is responsible for Island Grill. And she failed a couple of times in business. But look at what is happening to Island Grill now. If you think about Lasco, one of the giants in Jamaica, he would have had downfalls or setback a couple of times, and he's doing really well. If you think of Steve Harvey would have had his fair share. He would have told his story several times to many persons, and look at what is happening for him now. It is not about what really happens today. It is about how much you can maintain and persist into tomorrow. The exam is just a stepping stone. Some of the things that you will see and study today and go to that exam to do, you will never do them or see them again in life. It is not about the smartest person that will make it to the podium tomorrow. Probably the person who came on this morning for the first time could be that person who is going to ace the exam. Because sometimes there is this thing that we talk about knowledge through compulsion. It tend to stick. Now, this even when you talk to them, they won't remember anything. You'll remember everything, but they would have done better than you in the exam. Be kind to each other. Make sure you have your pencils, your ruler, your geometry set. Carry your calculator as well. It might be needed. And in all that you do, be kind to yourself. In all that you do, be kind to yourself. If you can't be kind to yourself, then it's going to be very difficult for me to be kind to you. We have started this journey, or we started this journey the 12th of September 2020 when we realized that students needed some help. Was it a profitable journey? Well, we didn't make any money from it. Certainly not. We did not. And did I make new friends? Probably I don't know anyone, but I am certain that I would have impacted a whole lot of lives. I've had the letters coming in from near and far, the limitations that they had, and how we impacted the life. I remember one student who was trapped in the USA, went away to do a surgery, and there was no contact with class. And our 3 live classes were the classes for this lady trapped in the USA. I remember another student who was trapped in Trinidad, and class for that student was Mr. Wilson Live. I speak of a young lady in St. Elizabeth who wrote us to say that she has no access to class or computer except on the weekend when she have the opportunity to visit her aunt on the lowland. It is for these reasons we continue to serve. We never know who or if there'll be any payback. But can I honestly say to you, students, that no one has ever been kind to me? I can't say. So despite I might have my many limitations, probably I'll take a picture of the computer that I'm using to vlog. It's just held up with one arm. So I am moving the screen now. The laptop is on the table and this is the screen. So the screen is connected and I have a little bottle behind it. I have this little bottle holding up the screen that it doesn't fall. But guess what? The lighting is poor. The monitor might not be the best thing, but we have been able to reach you. It's sometimes not what you have. Sometimes it's what you have to give. How much will you use your life, your experience to change another? The world might not be kind to you, but is that what you wanted from the world? If that's not what you wanted, why not start the change with being kind to somebody else? So for that, Anai has been here several times. Just come up sometime just to give that a chups or to just look at you to see if he can see anyone. Make some noise, run away, shove a chair. And most persons were really fine with that, understanding that Anai has to be a part. Cher would come in every now and then. She works in the background. She would watch the video sometime. And she's watching the notes there. You don't know her, but she's there watching. And for those things that I would have missed, she would have said that was said in the chat there. You need to address that, and I will come to the next show and I'll address it and things like that. We have a lot of multiple choice papers. I think 5-year papers thereabout. We have papers for both HSB and biology. And after this exam, it is not to break, but to continue putting in some work on those multiple choice paper. I don't even know when multiple choice paper will be, and I don't know if you will see me for the multiple choice paper, because they are going to memo me for work because I've not been a nice boy. I should have completed some document. No, but I understand your life is on the line and probably I can get some little lenience because I have the supervisor privilege. I think that I still have another deadline to get everything done. I will try. right? But I pray to God that they don't nail me to the cross. I think God will take care of that. All right. The experiences that my students here would have had, I think it's the experience right across the community, right across the Caribbean. So we continue to give. Remember that we have several videos and you want to ensure that you have other persons being a part of the channel before it is too late. So you want to share it, put it on your status, put the link on your status and have students join. Revenue creator, how are we going to compensate for? We tend to buy books and buy papers and buy all of these things to do this, and we really don't have any sponsor. By this, everybody would have known that I do some writing, so I have a book coming out shortly, or I have 3 books coming out shortly, along with some science content that we are working on. So that should be some revenue generator so that we can continue this. But it is a very expensive venture. We would have loved to have that proper lighting and probably classroom. And, you know, there are some persons in the world who just have to get it free because they can't manage, right? And these persons, we call upon them that when you can give back to help somebody else. Thank you for everything. Even though I joined yesterday, I'm sorry, I learned a lot. I'm heading out now. Great. So I'm expecting to see the numbers falling. I'm expecting to see persons leaving. So remember to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, if you want to donate to the channel, you can reach out to us at ricardos@hotmail.com. You would have seen that, or you could go to the channel and look at the email address that is there, and you can pretty much reach out. If you can't, that's fine. We still love you anyhow, and we're still going to be on for September assisting other students. There's also our paid channel that is TCP Academy. That would have provided a more interactive. Well, you could tell me it could get more interactive than it is here now. So if it happens here like this, I wonder what it is like when you get over to the paid channel. Now there are many products over there. You can just look at a paper. You probably could find things over there as cheap as $1. Yeah, as a dollar US. Yes, as a dollar US. Because it is the international community, so we are catering for your need. So if you don't need everything, just pay for what you want and go. It sound away? Yeah, that's what it is. That's a reality. We're looking at the international market. All right. So good luck, guys. Good luck. Remember to get yourself some water. Good luck. 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 It was great having you. You have rekindled my fire, and I'm grateful for that. Now I have my HSB students that I have to prepare for Wednesday. HSB students, I don't think that you're going to be having the privilege of the bio students with share screen, because like I was saying when I came on, I was using a free version of a software. They say that I have exhausted the free thing, and it is now time to pay for it. I'll wait until next month when I have more stream hours. Of course, I am not so affluent, so I really can't pay for the software. So we're going to try to make the videos available for the past papers, and where possible, we're going to be having settings like these where we can talk, or where you can pretty much ask a question, but you won't be seeing the past paper unless I have to go and search for some software. And I really don't have that time because I do have the government work to do here, and it's only professional to get your work done. So I have to try to strike that balance. So I'm going to leave for work shortly to go comfort my students before the start of the exam. And I will catch you, I think, this evening when the storm is over. Until this evening, probably 7 o'clock, walk good. All the best. Ta-ta.